The Weather Channel. No place on earth has better weather.
Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. I'm Kristina Abernathy. It's time to take a look ahead into our forecast for the next 5 days. But before we do that, let's take a look back at last week's weather and Weather Rewind.
Weather Rewind. A look back at the past week's weather.
It was a week of devastating tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, and record heat. Day after day, severe weather fired up in the southern high plains. On Sunday, a Weather Channel crew storm chasing in Kansas captured this tornado on tape. The twister touched down in a remote area in Harper County. A second Weather Channel crew got caught in this storm as it passed through McPherson, Kansas. High winds and rain hammered their car. The big story of the week was an F5 tornado that ripped through southwestern Texas Tuesday, killing at least 27 people. Most of the fatalities were in the town of Jarrell. There, the twister leveled about 50 homes in the Double Creek subdivision. Jarrell is no stranger to disaster. A tornado destroyed most of the town in 1989.
We saw a little thundercloud and we didn't know what it was. And she said, the tornado's coming, tornado's coming. And next thing we knew, we saw the Albertsons and Blockbuster roof go up.
Further south, in the town of Cedar Park, another tornado tore the roof off this grocery store. 8 people were injured. Meanwhile, it was a wet, dreary week for most of the southeast. And in stark contrast for the southwest, it was dry and hot. In Los Angeles, temperatures were about 15 degrees above average, but folks there didn't seem to mind. That's Weather Rewind. I'm Paul Emmick.
Weather Rewind. A look back at the past week's weather.
Well, let's see what we've got ahead in our forecast, and here's what we see in the eastern U.S. Plenty of soggy weather to start out your Sunday. This area of low pressure is not going to be moving a great deal as we head through the day, so you'll continue to see wet weather here. Also in the northwest, rather unsettled. Again, the soggy conditions, and along our front, we may even see some storminess, especially as we head into the afternoon. So look out along the front. Also look out in the east. We're going to see areas of rain, actually bands of rain and thunderstorms rotating around our area of low pressure. So look out here in the southeast. Also here to the north. One thing that we're going to be watching out for is heavy amounts of rain, which could cause some flooding problems. So be aware that that's a concern, already a concern in many areas, and the rain shows no signs of letting up. Rain and storms to the south as well into Florida. Heaviest amounts of precipitation, of course, are going to be with this system, or well over an inch of rain possible through noon on Sunday. Beyond that time frame, we'll continue to see the rain falling in many areas. Low temperatures on Monday. Actually, we'll take a look at high temperatures on Sunday. There we go. What we're going to see is a lot of warmth here through the central U.S. Plenty of 80s. Very warm indeed. While in the eastern U.S., we're going to see temperatures below normal because of all the clouds and the rain. That'll keep you a little cooler than normal. We'll see that again on Monday as that system is going to be very slow to move out of the region. On into Tuesday we go, and on into Wednesday. Finally, we think that by Thursday, we'll see that system moving off the east coast and things will begin to warm up somewhat again, while we'll have some 80s continuing through the central states, so the warmth continues here. Rain and storms focused in this area here, scattered showers and storms, all associated with the same system. Also, we'll see some moisture here in the northwest, scattered showers, maybe some isolated storms into the Dakotas and Nebraska. But the dark green continuing here through the Carolinas and into Virginia. We'll see that again on Wednesday, and even in New England and back towards the Gulf Coast, you could see some wet weather, but we think the concentration of the rain and the storms are going to be right here. So that's going to be several days of very soggy weather. Finally, we think things will be winding down as we head on into your Thursday. So look out again along the East Coast. It's going to be rather messy, but winding down hopefully by the end of the week. Well, stay tuned. We've got your local forecast coming up next. Don't go away.
Power in 86, good morning.
Good morning.
You're on the line with Master Psychic, Michelle.
I'd like to know what you see for me in my love life.
Have you guys been talking about getting like really serious?
Getting married.
Possibility. Could happen. I keep thinking maybe summertime.
Maybe.
Yeah, as you put a ring on your finger.
Certainly in the eastern half of the country, plenty of wet weather here. The soggy conditions from New York back into Pennsylvania and into Virginia and West Virginia and into Ohio. And unfortunately, with all of this persistent wet weather that you've seen recently, there is the potential for flooding, and it looks like more rain is in the forecast. Raining now around Baltimore towards Philly and on into Buffalo, as well as Columbus and Cleveland and Charleston, and we even have some storms mixed in as well. So scattered rain, scattered storms in here, and some of these have been dropping some pretty hefty amounts of rain and promise to drop even more rain. And you can sort of see the swirl of the precipitation around an area of low pressure that's just sort of stuck here in the eastern U.S., showing no signs of moving, and until it moves, it looks like you're still going to have the chance for some wet weather throughout the region, and that's already caused problems in some areas, and flood watches are in effect here from Ohio into Pennsylvania, as well as back towards Virginia. So look out for that. Slippery roadways to be sure, and don't drive your car through any areas where water covers the roads. To the south we go, where you too have had your share of messy weather. This area of low pressure in the front, again, not moving much at all. What we've seen is rain and even some thunderstorms really just rotating around this area of low pressure. And we still see scattered showers and storms throughout the region. Earlier today, some big problems in southern Georgia with some of these storms dropping large hail. Numerous severe storm reports out of southern Georgia, and we still see these bands of rain and storms moving through Georgia and into Alabama and Mississippi, also in Tennessee getting some of that wet weather. And you've had your share of rain in Florida as well, especially the southern part of the state now, still getting the wet weather from, say, Lake Okeechobee on southward to Miami, also around Naples. So here's the wet weather, and again, you can see that rotation around our area of low pressure here. Soggy conditions continuing from south of Nashville back to south of Memphis, also around Jonesboro getting the wet weather. Look out Montgomery, things could be soggy for you, and look out in Augusta. What we see here is an area of rain with some embedded storms, and that could be affecting you or portions of South Carolina as well, where you see the reds, the yellows. That gives you an idea of where some of the more intense storms are occurring. We also see some of that activity here across southern Florida. And it looks like another area of storms is getting ready to move right on into the western coast of Florida here. So look out for that. Also around Fort Lauderdale, some soggy conditions. So with all the wet weather, you have had some rather cool temperatures across the eastern U.S., cooler than normal, dropping down into the 50s and 60s now, but it's warmer in the west. Sharon?
Well, all evening we've been telling you about some severe weather in the west, specifically Colorado and South Dakota. We'll update you on that, but first a look at some unusual scenes from Washington State on Saturday. A reported tornado hit this section of Tacoma on Saturday. Storms like this are rather rare in this part of the country. Fortunately, there were no reports of serious injuries, but there was some damage, including trees falling on homes, and that will take some time to clean up. All right, let's go ahead and show you what's happening out there to the west right now. The severe weather that we've seen this evening has generally been ahead of our cold front. That's where the thunderstorms have been generated across this region as we work our way, let's see, right on into eastern portions of Wyoming, western, the panhandle of Nebraska, and extending on into South Dakota. And we continue to see occasionally some severe weather. Most of the action located into South Dakota, specifically this cluster of storms. But fortunately, everything is expired here. No longer looking at any severe thunderstorm watches or any tornado watches. So the trend is going to be for the atmosphere to continue to stabilize. We no longer have the daytime heating, and that was one of the elements contributing to some of the thunderstorm development by the late afternoon. South of Denver, we're still watching some thunderstorms. This particular cell here has been rather pesky. It's a slow mover. It's only moving about 10 miles per hour, moving in an easterly direction. And we have had reports of up to 2-inch hail with that. So some nasty conditions with that particular cell, and it really isn't showing very many signs of weakening, is it? It's certainly holding its own. That's going to stay to the south of Denver. And we've had some action also from Cheyenne pushing on into this region. These thunderstorms Moving on into Cheyenne County, heading into the panhandle of Nebraska, those storms have weakened considerably, but still a lot to watch out for into north central, northeastern portions of South Dakota. This cluster of storms still means business and some action there. Moving on into Valentine, Nebraska, looks like a bit of maybe a bow echo, bowing out slightly there, but those thunderstorms too trying to have more of a weakening trend as we go into the next hour. We can expect that to continue. Here's a look at the onshore flow into the Pacific Northwest. We continue to see a few stray showers around Seattle, but much more quiet in this region than what you saw just 24 hours ago. Kristina?
Well, let's see what's in store. A bit of a forecast for the eastern U.S. Certainly some messy conditions today, and it looks like that's going to continue this week as we have a big ridge here, but we also have an area of low pressure that's cut off, and it's not going to be moving much because it is cut off from that main flow. Plenty of moisture drawn in, plus with the daytime heating, we have a lot of instability, so that's going to mean rain, possible flooding, and also thunderstorms to the south. What about the rest of the country, Sharon?
Well, let's take a look at it. That's a nasty scenario in the east. Some of these areas just don't need any additional moisture, but unfortunately that's exactly what we're looking at. Showers also spreading up into upstate New York and stretching into southern sections of New England. So the scattered showers continue in this region, becoming more scattered with time, and each day as our upper level low begins to weaken, the threat for severe weather will become less and less. But still maybe some isolated severe thunderstorms in the southeast should we see enough daytime heating by Monday afternoon. As you can see, isolated storms out here into the Intermountain region and a new system poised to move into the Pacific Northwest. Again, we're still watching for some heavy rain associated with our cluster of storms now into portions of South Dakota and Nebraska. And obviously a lot of moisture drawn in from the Gulf of Mexico over areas of the east, so easily picking up 1, 2, maybe even 3 inches of rainfall there. Still a lot of cool air to expect as a result of the clouds and the rain, going to keep temperatures much below what we would expect for early June. The heat, though, will be with you heading into the central and northern plains. And of course into the desert southwest. We just can't seem to get rid of the heat there. They can't buy a cool day in the southwest.
Just the opposite in the east.
Exactly.
Well, your local forecast is coming up next, and then stay with us to find out how travel conditions are shaping up around the nation. That's ahead on TravelWise.
Stick around.
Local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel.
Very much, and with that we see persistent moisture, persistent rain, and even thunderstorms here. You've seen a lot of wet weather recently, and it looks like there's even more in the forecast, so we do have flood watches in effect for much of Ohio into Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, so be extra careful out on the roads. Anywhere through this region, you could certainly run into some slippery areas because of the wet weather, but you could also have some flooding problems here, and don't drive your car through any areas where water covers the roads. We also have the threat of strong to severe storms. Strong storms in the east, and still an area here where you could run into some severe weather from the Dakotas back into Colorado. But into the southeast we go, first of all, where you're still getting some wet weather and still some storms here, sort of scattered about, just sort of rotating around that big area of low pressure. We see some of those storms in eastern Georgia and southeastern Georgia, just south of Augusta. Look out, maybe some storminess for you. We see that scattered to the west as well. Northward we go, where again you could still see some severe weather in some of these areas, and where you see the yellows and the reds, that's where the bigger storms are right now, and we see those as well just to the south of Denver, so look out where the reds are. Again, some pretty intense storms here. Wet weather in these areas, and look out for a few areas of windy conditions as well. Stay tuned. Your local forecast is coming up next.
At Michelin, we believe it
right around that area of low pressure, and it's not moving much, and that means unsettled weather for the eastern U.S. What we also see is here off the northeast coast an area of low pressure that's going to contribute to some rather windy conditions here, especially along the northeast coast, so keep that in mind. In the west, plenty of cloud cover here, some storms, and we see a rather widespread area of cloud cover in the west as well. But to the northeast, look out. Again, those windy conditions, a cold front sagging southward, and that area of low pressure will contribute to winds over 25 miles per hour, as well as some of the lakes. You could see some windy conditions. Not so bad along the Gulf Coast. Water temperatures here in the 70s and 80s. And finally, along the west coast, there will be a few areas where wind could be a problem. Your extended forecast is coming up next.
Housekeeping. Excuse me. Checking out? We'll change the room. hotels are undergoing a billion-dollar renovation to make every Holiday Inn as good as the best Holiday Inn.
Oh, you're back. Your toothbrush.
That means we're changing a lot more than the sheets. Holiday Inn, on the way.
Evenings on the Weather Channel. Today's top stories, tonight's developments, and what to expect tomorrow. A comprehensive weather picture on the Weather Channel every night.
Well, it's time now to take a look at our forecast for the going on. Of course, we have a big ridge of high pressure here, but what we also see is an area of low pressure cut off from that main jet stream flow. And with this, we're going to see some very unsettled weather over the eastern U.S. because this low is not going to move. There's nothing to push it out of the way. So we're going to see on into Friday, continued rather stagnant pattern here, unsettled conditions and temperatures perhaps below normal because of the rain and the cloud cover. So you see that on Tuesday, highs only in the 60s and 70s for much of the east, a little warmer through the central states, and that'll continue on into Wednesday. And take a look at the southwest, well into the 100 and 110 degree range for your high temperatures. By Thursday, here's what we can expect if we can get our maps to advance here. There we go. 80s through the central U.S., still cool in the east, maybe a bit of a warm-up finally by Friday. We will see persistent wet weather here over the eastern U.S., at least the chance for showers. Some folks will just be getting a general rainy scenario here. On into Wednesday we go, up and down the east coast, you could be getting wet. On into Thursday, no changes. Finally by Friday, you'll dry out in the northeast, but the southeast could still run into a few scattered showers. Stay tuned. We're going to have your complete 5-day forecast coming up next.
Do you want to make rust, lime deposits, and other tough stains disappear like magic? Barkeeper's Friend, the premium household cleanser, is your magic wand against...
What the scene, the stronger thunderstorms developing and then moving eastward into Wyoming, moving on out into the panhandle of Nebraska. So these areas have been under the gun for the past several hours, but the showers, the thunderstorms actually showing signs of winding down. Still watching some thunderstorms up into north central South Dakota. All of our watch areas have expired. I just wanted to reiterate that, so we're not worried about a widespread outbreak of severe weather, but occasionally still getting some reports of some large hail and some damaging winds. Well, it's about time. Finally, our cell that has been moving, was originally just northeast of the Colorado Springs. It's been moving slowly to the east at about 10 miles per hour, producing at one point up to 2-inch hail. Finally showing some signs of weakening. That's a good sign. The atmosphere here is stabilizing somewhat. It's been a little while since sunset, and so the even the surface of the earth cooling down a bit. So we're not seeing quite as active a scenario as we were, say, just maybe a couple of hours ago. Still some activity here from just south and east of Cheyenne on into the panhandle of Nebraska, and we continue on up into Cherry County in Nebraska, and we are seeing a severe thunderstorm warning there. Look at these cells slowly moving on off. A lot of rain here. The thunderstorms beginning to fall apart. That's a good sign. And this not looking nearly as impressive as it once did. So things winding down here into the northern plains. Still with these storms, some small hail might be expected and some gusty winds. It's not over here for the northwest either. You'll find more moisture streaming on in. Already looking at just a few scattered showers in Seattle. But the rain is heavier in the east and looks like it will continue. Kristina?
Well, that's right, a rather messy scenario in the eastern U.S., and here's a look at why. We've got a big ridge of high pressure here, but what we also see is an area of low pressure cut off from that jet stream flow. It's stationary, not moving much at all, pulling in lots of moisture. Combine that with the heating of the day, that creates instability, so that means rain and thunderstorms, especially here in the afternoon, while to the north that rain could cause flooding and showery weather for the northeast. What about the rest of the country's forecast, Sharon?
Well, let's check it out. Monday morning, much of the same. Some of the same areas seeing the wet weather now. We'll continue to get a dose of some rain for Monday. In the vicinity of the front here up to the north, you will find a better chance for some showers. And again, some widely scattered thunderstorms, especially those areas that see even a little bit of sunshine during the day to heat things up. Out to the west, isolated thunderstorms here, more moisture pointing toward the Pacific Northwest. Again, most of the more significant rains can be found in areas of the east, with our persistent flow of moisture wrapping up along the eastern quadrant of that upper level low and wrapping all the way on up into parts of the Northeast and the Great Lakes. A lot of cool air here. In fact, we're talking about the clouds being so thick and the showers continuing that highs will really only make it into the 60s once again across much of Indiana on into Ohio and most of the north and east. You will find cooler than average temperatures in the southeast, but still hot into the valleys of California and the desert southwest.
Okay, summer making an early start.
Early start there, and never really did get started. Neither did spring get a start in the Northeast yet.
No, it didn't really, did it? Well, stay tuned. Your local forecast is coming up next, and then stay with us to find out how travel conditions are shaping up around the nation.
TravelWise is next.
Local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel.
I make my living staining wood for house exteriors. And when you stain enough wood for over 300 houses a year like we do, you want a stain that keeps its color and won't peel, blister, or fade. So we stain all our wood siding with Czar Rain Stain. You know, it's nice to see homes we stained years ago, and they still look great today. So why stain your house more often than you have to? Use Czar Rain Stain. It protects better, it lasts longer, and you can bet the house on that.
Protect and beautify your investment with Czar Rain Stain.
Time now for your boat and beach report. Obviously a lot of clouds across the nation, and that spells out some showery weather. Maybe not the best of conditions to be heading out on area lakes, but you make the decision. You can make the call here. Taking you into the Great Lakes, we'll find some breezy conditions, so quite a chop to the water. Water temperature is still quite cool all the way up into Lake Superior, around 44 degrees. That's some chilly stuff. Hasn't even warmed up yet even around Cape Hatteras. It's getting a little bit warmer up around 70 there. If you're heading out into the Gulf of Mexico, this is where water temperatures are much more favorable. Down around the Keys, around 82 around Tampa, and 82 off the coast of Miami, being in with 79. All right, next stop showing you the satellite picture. Again, fairly tranquil, not looking at a lot of tropical activity at this point in time, but again, Kristina's going to let you know exactly what's happening in the Atlantic and Pacific.
You Americans work too hard.
If you ask me, you could use a holiday in a place that's made for it, Australia.
How tomorrow's forecast is shaping up.
Every night on the Weather Channel. In this half hour, WeatherScope, a comprehensive national forecast. At 40 after, TravelWise gives you the latest on travel hotspots. Next, international weather. And at 50 after, the storm update. Right now, your local forecast. This is WeatherScope.
Threat of severe weather is stretched across the nation's midsection throughout the evening, and still more storminess. And the southern plains, upper Midwest, still kind of wild. Hello, I'm Paul Emmick.
And I'm Kim Perez. Now, we'll also have the forecast to begin your work week, but first, the latest on the stormy weather. One of the hot spots for severe weather Sunday evening has been Wisconsin. This is Dunn County near Eau Claire, where a reported tornado damaged a farmer's silo and tore down some trees. Unfortunately, there are no reported injuries. And we've had several other reports of tornadoes also. One around Cedar Rapids, also Irvington, Wisconsin. I guess that's the one around Eau Claire. And also Hot Springs, South Dakota, a tornado reported there also. All right, the severe weather continues tonight. And I bet you can pick out where. Right along this boundary here. And also in southern Texas, around the Big Bend area. A tornado warning now for Crockett County, southwestern Crockett County, so hopefully you are taking cover immediately. All right, let's talk about why this is happening, then I'll show you the watches. See this purple line right here? That is a prefrontal trough, as we call it, or squall line. Thunderstorms develop ahead of the front, form a convergent area, thus a trough, and that's what we're seeing, thunderstorms all along this area right here, and they're moving, they're kind of training, so once one storm leaves, another one moves in, and we've seen that in southeastern Iowa for many hours tonight, and also in southern Wisconsin. So folks in Chicago, those storms, might take a while to get there, but they may get there tonight, so be on the lookout. Also in central Kansas and northwestern Oklahoma, and even in the Panhandle. Dew points, that's another ingredient we look at. 70s and 60s all the way into Wisconsin. No wonder we had a very unstable atmosphere, and some of the storms may be moving into a more unstable atmosphere, and that's why we'll probably see some of these storms continue all the way through the evening tonight. Let's take a look at the watches. Here's the tornado watch still in effect, and the rest are just severe thunderstorm watches. I believe the one that was back here in the Texas Panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas has been canceled at this time. Okay, this is the one here, though, that right now has a tornado warning with it, and that is in Crockett County. I believe that's just north and west of Del Rio, and it is moving east-northeast at about 30 miles an hour or so. Let's take a look at some radars and see how they're just kind of slowly, they're just, the cells are moving off to the east, it looks like, and the line is slowly drifting to the south, very slowly. Rockford probably almost there. Yeah, you're probably seeing some lightning and hearing some thunder now. And these storms have had history of producing gusty winds and even some small hail up to an inch or so in some areas. So again, I don't believe there are any warnings out with these storms here, but that's not to say there won't be any issues. So we'll keep an eye on that, especially this looks like a pretty intense line here. All right, farther to the south and west, this right here, again, watch out for the gusty winds coming in with this area, Columbia. And this line, Wichita, and just to the northeast of you in Chase County, we've had reports of over 60-mile-an-hour winds with these storms, and also in Sedgwick County, which is western Wichita, reports of 70-mile-an-hour winds. So these storms are big wind producers, and some of them may contain some small hail. So be on the lookout there, folks in Wichita, and even Enid, Oklahoma, some storms just to your north. Be on the lookout. This is the storm here. This is the nasty little one. Earlier we did have a tornado warning in not Val Verde, but Terrell County. Now it is in Sedgwick County, very southwestern Sedgwick County, and is moving, I believe I read, off to the east-northeast. So still, folks in Del Rio, looks like some storms just coming in from Old Mexico. Just be on the lookout. Some storms may be heading your way. All right. Well, that's it for severe weather. Let's talk about some nice weather. What do you say, Paul?
That's right, and now for something completely different. You had some stormy weather disrupting the outdoor plans across the big chunks of the country. A lot of the nation enjoying a beautiful Father's Day. Now, maybe you kind of had the chance to enjoy a big, nice Father's Day in Chicago. You might have been at Wrigley Field with dear old Dad, and Cub fans enjoyed a high temp of 82 degrees on Sunday. Of course, a little on the breezy side in the Windy City, but overall a great day for baseball. Things are different in Chicago tonight. Kim just showed you the impending storminess there in the Chicagoland area, about to head into Cook County, about to see on the northwestern edge of the county. Some rain moving in here just the next little bit. Not exactly the same scenario there tonight, is it, as rains move in? We talked about the wet weather there, the storminess, the warm temps are there too. The warmer the air, the more moisture it can hold. Still 75 in Chicago, a daytime high of 82. Clouds moved in, the moisture's there. You haven't cooled off, but like 7 degrees since your daytime high. Cleveland 64, Indy 68, 68 now at Minneapolis, and you've seen some wet weather today. The good news is you're in for a better Monday. You paid the price for a stormy Sunday, but you get to have the nicer day as we move on into Monday. The Northeast, well, one thing you need to know, it's raining tonight in Manhattan. That would be Manhattan, Kansas, not Manhattan, New York. Nothing but nice there. High pressure sprawling out. Big, nice, stable dome and ascending air. Good weather maker where it's sitting right now. Boston, you're seeing a great night. Hartford, a great night. And guess what? Great night and turning into a great day. It's about the last one, though, because we'll talk about Tuesday later. We should talk about it later, but and not a lot of nice weather moving your way. Kind of a wet pattern. Right now, nice, so Boston 57, 63 in New York City. The southeast, not much happening. Things are fairly quiet here in the southeast tonight. A few sprinkles in northern parts of Louisiana. That's about it. Temps, 81 New Orleans, 77 Panama City, 81 to Miami, and 79 for Houston, and 82 at Dallas. The west, looking pretty nice. Of course, further on in, some showers to speak of. Still an upper level area of low pressure continues to spin and keep a few showers here in the Four Corners. Temps looking pretty nice here. 73 in Reno, Nevada, 60 in San Francisco. Nice warm night in Phoenix, too, with a 79 degrees. Let's see what comes next on to Monday with Kim.
All right, thanks, Paul. Well, Monday morning may be a little stormy for the folks in Chicago. You do have some storms heading your way now, but as the front approaches, you could also see some more thunderstorms and also into Columbia, Missouri.
Ask me questions. Local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel.
Work week on a rather warm note for most areas of the U.S., especially along the Gulf Coast in the 90s and in the Southwest, even a few 100s showing up here. More of the same for Thursday, maybe just a bit of a cool down here in the Northeast in the 60s and 70s for highs. Nothing unbearable, certainly, and on into Wednesday, we see that heat beginning to build here through the Plain States, 90s into central Nebraska. Cooler in the Northwest and in the Northeast. Finally, on into Thursday we go. 90s into the Carolinas, 90s and 100s continuing here, and more of the same in store for Friday. What about precipitation? We're going to continue to see that system pushing eastward, and with it, we're going to continue to see the chance for storminess. Some of the storms could be quite strong here from northern Texas on into Arkansas and Missouri and Oklahoma and Illinois, so look out. St. Louis, Tulsa, maybe even Dallas. Could be a rather rocky day for Tuesday, and you'll have the chance for wet weather all the way into the northeastern U.S. That system continues to push eastward on Wednesday, and you can pretty much tell where we think the front's going to be. On Thursday, not making much progress at all. The Gulf Coast on into New England, it's going to be soggy, while in the west you'll have the chance for some storms, but most of these are going to be isolated in nature. And finally, on into Friday we go, where we see the northeast, or actually the southeast, getting most of the wet weather, as well as our next system, which is moving on into the northern plain states. Well, that's it for your forecast. Let's take a quick look at what's going on out there right now. And we continue to see those storms rumbling through southern Wisconsin into northern Illinois, back through Iowa and Missouri and Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, and even into southern Texas as well. Numerous watches are still in effect. We still have part of a tornado watch in effect here through Iowa and Illinois, and then severe thunderstorm watches lined up from Missouri to Kansas to Oklahoma, and then another back into Texas, where we have a particularly imposing looking cell here moving through the southern and western part of the state. But a line of storms now extends through northern Illinois, just to the north of the Chicago area. So you could certainly have some rough weather here starting out on the northern edge of town, but folks in Chicago need to be aware that things are a little bit rocky here back towards Dubuque. You can see that line of thunderstorms as it continues to rumble on through the northern part of the state. We follow that area of rain and storms back through Iowa and Missouri. Look out Quincy. You could have some rough weather, as well as Columbia. Then back towards Topeka and Wichita. That's where we see some of the bigger storms right now. That as well back into northern Oklahoma. And these are really not showing any signs of winding down. Still rather formidable, so look out. The rough weather continuing well into the overnight hours. And we also see another troublesome area right here through Texas, north of Del Rio. So
Look out, flooding a potential here, flood watch in effect, and that threat for severe weather continues too. Your local forecast is next.
No problem. In this half hour, the Pacific Update with forecast for the West and Alaska and Hawaii. At 40 after, TravelWise gives you the latest on travel hotspots. Next, international weather and the storm update. Right now, your local forecast, always on the 8s of the hour on the Weather Channel.
A lot of problems this evening with severe weather. We've had several tornadoes touching down on Iowa throughout the evening hours. We want to update you on the storms, then we'll give you the latest on your western weather, specifically for California, Oregon, and Washington. In the short term, we've been following a lot of severe weather this evening, covering a good deal of the Midwest. Chicagoland lookout storms in the northwestern suburbs, all the way down towards Oklahoma, and in Texas, in Val Verde County right now, you have a severe thunderstorm warning. Watches, well, at least we're kind of shaving them back. Your local weather service takes the watch, and as they feel it's necessary, will cut back on the areas they feel are no longer threatened. You can still see a bit of a tornado watch in parts of Iowa, extreme northwestern Illinois, and the severe thunderstorm watch is arcing back towards the Big Bend of Texas. Let's take a look at a few radars right now, and there's the big line of storms now just north of Chicago, and it's been inching south and east. Notice the main area of rain is covering the same area. This is what we call training in the atmosphere, and as a result, you've been pummeled in southern Wisconsin. Some of those counties have had Doppler radar estimates of 3 to 4 inches of rainfall based on our reports, and as we go in closer, you can see how that solid line of red and orange is sagging south. Rockford, obviously, you know what it's like outdoors right now. Over towards Waukegan, going up the lakefront from Lake Forest up past Winnetka. And then we have more rain in southern Wisconsin. This whole area, if you're in a flood-prone situation, be advised, because we've got more storms coming in from Iowa out around Dubuque and down through the Quad Cities, too. You'll get some rain tonight. Look at this bow echo. Kansas City, you got hit hard. Now the storms are bowing, and where you see this area, this bow, that's where you can have some very strong winds and some wind damage. And look at this line, how it snakes down through Wichita and just south of Topeka and Lawrence, just south of the Kansas Turnpike. And it's all moving off to the east and southeast. So a lot of action in the plains and Midwest. We'll keep you covered throughout the night with the watches and the warnings. Western weather, though, is very, very quiet. Look at this. Just a few high clouds now moving into Seattle, into the Puget Sound and parts of Oregon, Astoria, and the Portland area. Here's our big spinning low. By the way, this is going to be kicked out by this system and cause more problems with severe weather for the plains and then points east for Monday, Tuesday, and possibly into Wednesday. Pretty nice Father's Day on the West Coast. Warm, too, in the Rogue Valley. Medford, 91. Vegas, 82. Phoenix, not bad, 89. Kind of comfy. 74 in Denver. That's where you found some storms, most of those moving off to the east of Denver on Sunday evening. Take a look at the current temps, 66 in Portland, still 70 in El Paso. And again, we do have some storms in West Texas, 58 in San Francisco. The high clouds we showed you in the northwest with 60s, 90 in Marysville. Is that possible? Well, that's what it says. 84 Fresno, and the cooler Pacific breezes now. Upper 50s, Monterey, Carmel, up towards Oakland and Berkeley. 66 right now at the Civic Center, and out through the deserts, temperatures still in the mid-70s. No earthquakes to report the past 24 hours in California. One minor trembler there, just off to the northeast of Seattle and off to the east of Bellingham, and Alaska has been quiet too. All the weather we just showed you, the severe weather in mid-America. East Coast is quiet, and it was a real nice Father's Day. Monday looks just as nice, although change is on the way. Check the western weather. Here we go on Monday, another beautiful day. The low, which caused the problems over the weekend, kicks off to the east. A few storms, but it should be dry in California. As the sunshine returns, temperatures start to rise a little bit. Civic Center high at 80 Monday afternoon. Starting off in the upper 50s, about where you are in the Bay Area, a few low clouds, especially near the coast and out through the Bay. And then as the sunshine works on the atmosphere, look how warm it gets. And this is just a sign of the entire week in the Central Valley of California. Red Bluff at 101, Sacramento at 98. It will stay that hot, if not hotter, for the next 4 to 5 days. And in the northwest, it warms up too. 80 in Portland, 94 in Medford. Back east, the flow of moisture out ahead of our front moving east. Storms. This is the best bet for severe weather, though, in the southern plains in Texas, where temperatures again will be in the 90s. Look at the 90s. Look at the triple-digit heat in the southwest for Tuesday. Let's check out the rest of the work week. Here we go. Vacation plans in the plains. It's going to be hot. Most of the west, hotter than it was last week. And you can see nothing like last week coming back to the northeast, where you broke 90 several afternoons in Boston. Storms, some of those could be severe as that western system lifts out on Tuesday. We'll bring all of this to the east coast. Then it slows down, so count on rain for Wednesday and Thursday and more storms on Friday. Your local forecast is coming up, but first let's check these city-by-city forecasts.
This is your local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel.
Let's check in on those roadways for tonight and especially for the Monday morning commute, or if you're flying. If you're flying first thing in the morning in the Midwest, you may want to check ahead. We've got wet roadways. We've got flood watches continuing for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Although you have been spared the brunt of the action so far, that may be changing tonight and certainly the next couple of days, because this storm in the southwest will be booted off to the east and will be spreading our severe weather threat in this direction for Monday and Tuesday. But how about Monday morning? We've got showers and thunderstorms continuing through the overnight hours. We've got several watches in effect right now. Even if you don't have watches, we've got storms. We'll show you radars in a minute, and they're continuing to cruise off to the south and east. There are your watches from the Storm Prediction Center. Continuing problems in Kansas, Iowa, now just up the lakefront from the Loop in Chicago, and more storms all the way out in Val Verde County and western Texas along the Big Bend. Take a look at this line of serious weather. Right along the Illinois-Wisconsin border, sagging south. So those of you in Chicago, look out over the next few hours. And in southern Wisconsin and out towards Dubuque, there has been a ton of rainfall. Here comes another line of some serious storms in through Dubuque, out towards Cedar Rapids. We had a funnel cloud earlier. This whole area has been hit hard by a lot of rainfall, and more rain is coming in. So watch out if you're in one of those areas which is prone to flooding. Now let's follow the line. Rockford, by the way, in Winnebago County, we've had reports of fields flooded, trees and power lines down due to high winds. And majority of the reports we've had from all the storms on Sunday as far as damage, it's been wind damage, not the damage from tornadoes or hail. Here's Chicago going up the lakefront towards Milwaukee Avenue and up towards Winnetka and then up towards Waukegan and Lake Forest. You can see storms in the area, and these will gradually sag south overnight tonight. Moving south and west, we've got this bow echo now stretching just south and off to the southeast of KC, arcing back up towards Topeka, and Lawrence, and then more storms as they waver back towards Wichita. So anywhere in this area, watch out. They're all moving in your direction, Joplin, Springfield, and down towards the Ozarks later on tonight. Here's a look at national radar. East Coast, no problems for the Monday morning commute, as well as the West Coast. Next up, let's check on that international weather, just in case you're taking some vacation overseas. We may go down under, too, coming up in a moment. Okay, international weather time at 45 after. Coming up, we'll check the tropics in a few minutes. First, though, look at the worldwide temps and find that a good deal of the northern hemisphere warming up now as we approach summer in the next week or so. Southern hemisphere, the days are getting shorter, the daylight periods, and way down there in southern parts of South America, southern Chile, Argentina, that's where highs have been running in the 40s, and again up near the North Pole, it never really gets that warm. Take a look at the hemisphere. Looking over towards Australia, and we have a tropical depression here. This could become a tropical storm, but it should be picked up and carried off with a westerly wind flow and not become a major problem and take the same route as Nestor back across the international date line. Looking down under to Australia, the weather looks pretty good, although it is now almost the first official day of winter. Clear skies and no approaching fronts, but again with winter approaching, temperatures have cooled off, and the highs the past 24 hours showing that. Melbourne, 45 degrees, even in some of those central areas, desert areas, Alice Springs in the 60s. You get up towards Darwin, in those areas, it usually stays warm most of the year and never a problem in Southeast Asia. Here's your forecast for Tuesday. A little bit better in Melbourne, 61. And as you get up towards Manila in the Philippines and up towards Vietnam, temperatures in the 90s, plenty of humidity. Coming up on the Weather Channel, we'll check in on the tropics in the Atlantic and Caribbean.
With more than 200
for a Century 21 office near you.
If you're going to hit the road tomorrow, you might want to hit the information superhighway today. Check us out at weather.com.
This commercial is rated A. ReTV, America's keeper of classic TV.
This is your local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel. Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Now, the tropics were a little bit more interesting last week, and week before last we had a couple of tropical storms in the Pacific. But now, Andres and Blanca are history, and we turn our attention again back towards the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Gulf of Mexico. This is June, and these are the favorite areas for development, the Bay of Campeche and the western, southwestern Caribbean, based on what we've seen over the past 110 years. And by the way, we typically see a storm develop about once every other June in this part of the world. And let's find out what's going on out there here early on Monday morning. Not a whole lot. We do have a storm out here, but this is an extratropical low, non-tropical in nature, very high winds aloft, tearing apart at the system, and there's little chance of this becoming tropical. But convection showers and thunderstorms, you can see some of the bright white clouds arcing back towards the Bahamas, and a few more well out into the Atlantic. And again, we don't expect any development. As far as the rest of the tropics here, Gulf of Mexico clear, Caribbean high and dry, the two areas which are favored for development. We have a nice ridge of high pressure here, which is favorable for development in the upper levels, but we don't have any tropical waves coming underneath that area, so right now we're not concerned. And watching the rest of the Caribbean out through the Windward and Leeward Islands, just a few clouds. Nothing to really get excited about. So right now, smooth sailing. If you're cruising, you're vacationing, it looks okay for the next several days. Here's the tail end of that trough, bringing some of that convection, some storms indicated here with the reds and oranges over the Bahamas, a few clouds arcing back just north and east of Jamaica, between Jamaica and the Grand Cayman Islands, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands clear. Some high clouds moving in through some of the Windward Islands, but no rainfall as far as we know, and it's been beautiful here, the islands off Venezuela, including Aruba and Curacao. As we extend our view a little bit more to the east, there's your intertropical convergence zone. That's where the winds come together. We get lifting, and we get the storms developing, and you can see some pockets of convection. Again, convection, just another word for storms, showers and thunderstorms, but nothing to be worried about here, nothing developing. And as we look into the areas which would be a little bit more favorable, a little farther north of the equator, as you can see, things are quiet. And as we extend our view off the coast of Africa, this is where we find big clusters of storms coming off and sometimes forming some pretty powerful hurricanes. But what's going on right now is it's still June. The water is relatively cool for tropical storm formation. Water temperatures generally now below 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 25 degrees Celsius. And as these areas of thunderstorms come off the coast, they weaken very quickly. As we've seen over the past week or so, we've had several of these come off, and once they hit that cooler water, kaboom, they're gone. They fizzle out. No concerns there. And again, that's more of a late summer area we watch for development. But this is where we've had a couple of tropical storms. We do have an area of convection, which is right along the coast, and because of that, nothing could really develop. We need to have it out over the open water. And well southwest of the tip of Baja of California, Cabo San Lucas, way out here in the Pacific, some showers, but nothing developing. We'll watch it, but again, it's way off, away from the land areas, and no concerns at this point. So the tropics, again, recapping, very, very quiet. After a couple of tropical storms here in the Pacific over the past couple of weeks, nothing looks very favorable to develop in the next couple of days. And the Atlantic, Gulf, and Caribbean are smooth sailing. That's the way we want to see it after the past couple of years. Speaking of smooth sailing, let's check out that Monday forecast in the Northeast. Sunny, beautiful, still low humidity after a crisp morning, 70s, pushing 80 in Washington. Southeast, a few more clouds, and there may be a thunderstorm late in the day around Atlanta, certainly in Birmingham, as all that storminess really takes hold in Texas and through the plains. Storms tonight, better chance tomorrow. Dallas, hot and humid, and it will be that heat and humidity leading to those storms. 81 in Chicago. Storms right now, some of those could be severe as they approach the city from the north and west. Behind that system, nice day in Minneapolis. Sunny and 75, pushing 80 in the western plains. And our upper low in the southwest will be spinning out of the way, and the general trend in the west is dry and warm. 94 in Medford, pushing 100 tomorrow afternoon in Sacramento, and 80 in Los Angeles. Coming up, your local forecast. Kim Perez has more on the severe weather continuing tonight in the plains. Coming up.
In the next half hour, the Good Morning Forecast gives you a comprehensive look at today's weather across the nation. At 10 after, the Pacific Regional Forecast. And at 20 after, the 5-day planner. Right now, your local forecast.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. A lot of severe weather again Sunday evening, and one spot in particular in Wisconsin. Let's take a look at some video out of Dunn County. This is near Eau Claire, and a tornado reportedly touched down, damaging this farmer's silo and tearing down some trees. So tomorrow the threat of severe weather will be pushed a little bit farther to the east. And here's our severe threat through the morning hours. And folks in Chicago and down to Springfield, Missouri, and even Joplin and maybe Oklahoma City this morning, you could hear some rumbles of thunder as these storms move through. And even around Del Rio and off to the south and east, we could see some thunder. All right, highs. Well, one of the reasons it was so unstable in the area, look at these high temperatures. 82 in Minneapolis, St. Paul, also having some severe weather roll through on Sunday afternoon. 87 in Des Moines. Not Des Moines, but eastern Iowa got hit hard with severe weather today. A lot of wind damage right along this corridor here and even back into Kansas. So very unstable atmosphere. Dew points were well up into the 60s and even 70s as far north as Oklahoma City. Now, the other thing I want to point out was this 82-degree reading right here, Las Vegas. And I know you haven't seen temperatures out of the 60s, 70s in the last couple of days. It's going to start to warm up. I promise you. You're going to have to deal with maybe another day of somewhat cooler than average temperatures, but we think tomorrow you'll probably get to 90 degrees or so. So it's starting to warm up, and it's because our friendly, I should say unfriendly, upper level low, it's finally starting to come out into the plains. Now that is really not good news for the folks in the plains, because this is going to mean severe weather. And tomorrow we're thinking the area, I should say today, we think the area will be right in here and into Texas. So the panhandles of Oklahoma, Texas, and West Texas, northern Texas. Tomorrow, be on the lookout for severe weather. Actually, Monday afternoon, be on the lookout for severe weather. All right. Well, here's our jet stream. Let's take a look at that. Our jet stream shows the trough here, that upper level low, and the ridge over the east where we've seen temperatures in the 70s. It was a beautiful day in New York City and Boston on Sunday. By Tuesday, it comes out into the plains. So that threat of severe weather probably following it through the week, and scattered showers and thunderstorms for the Ohio Valley. And we start to see a little bit of a ridge build into the west. So Las Vegas, Albuquerque, Phoenix, you're going to start to see your temperatures come up, and probably improving weather conditions, not as much cloudiness or thunderstorms in the area. Monday morning, though, the folks will have to deal with thunderstorms from Chicago to St. Louis, maybe even Abilene or so. We'll have to keep an eye on that for you this morning. So just make sure when you head out in the morning, take your umbrella and just drive a little bit slower. But folks on the East Coast, it's going to be a beautiful morning. Enjoy the day, because eventually this front is going to get there. But it's going to take a day or two to get there. Cleveland, well, I'm sorry. Looks like the rain's heading your way. Had a pretty decent day in the Ohio Valley on Sunday. It looks like some thunderstorms in the afternoon. And here's the area we're watching for severe weather, big time, tomorrow afternoon. So just tune in with us. We'll let you know if there are any watches or warnings issued in your area. High pressure coming in behind it. You bet it's going to be a pretty nice day for the folks in Iowa and Nebraska. So it'll be a good day for you to get out there and start the cleanup. I'm sure a lot of wind damage. We've had a lot of wind damage in Kansas also. Some wind reports of over 70 miles an hour around Sedgwick County, which is about right in this area here. So, and look how the thunderstorms really dwindle down here in the mountains. So we're looking at improving conditions for the west, but not so improving conditions for the east. Heavy precip amounts here as the systems move off to the east and southeast, kind of a training effect. We're going to see heavy rainfall tonight, and maybe even seeing some spotty amounts of over a ½ inch or so around the Big Bend area. Now lows are going to remain mild tonight with a lot of a cloud cover around, and we'll probably see some cooler readings again in the mountains, but you know, that's going to change a little bit. We're already reflecting that on Monday with temperatures in the 70s and 80s and even 90s around Sacramento. And it'll be probably steamy once again across the south. The northeast looking good tomorrow again, so make sure you get out and enjoy the nice weather. Okay, well, coming up, we're going to have your Pacific update. But first, I'm sure you're going to want to take a look at this, because we have your extended forecast coming up. And you're going to want to know what kind of a week it's going to be. Unfortunately for the folks in the east, it's not going to be so good. Folks in the west, I think you're going to like what I have to say. Stay tuned.
Jenny, I find
Call 1-800-934-2-TRY.
Traffic's barely moving. We expect serious problems on the roadways.
A DC-9 plane skidded on traveling will be a big problem.
TravelWise, mornings at 10 and 40 past the hour, takes the surprise out of your travel on the Weather Channel. This is your local forecast.
All right, let's take a look at the regional forecast for the Pacific, at least for the western parts of the country. Well, not looking too bad actually for the morning hours. A few thunderstorms, well, probably not even thunderstorms, a few showers probably still around in the higher elevations, but actually fairly quiet for you folks in Phoenix and San Francisco all the way to LA. But by the afternoon, we might see some thunderstorms develop again. But it is starting to decrease, though. Don't get too upset. It's going to happen for the next couple of days, probably just in the very highest elevations. But otherwise, that big upper low that has been sitting over here, it's starting to head this way. So we'll see the weather start to decrease in this area. So looking good for the Pacific Northwest also. See, it's going to be sunny on Monday morning. Clouds along the coastal areas, maybe even some fog, some patchy fog around San Diego. But you know what happens usually by the afternoon. It's gone. So partly cloudy skies and temperatures in the 70s, 80 at the Civic Center, not too bad at all. Meanwhile, farther north, even around San Francisco, you can expect some low clouds in the morning to roll in, but by the afternoon, it's going to be nice and sunny for you. 75, that's a pretty nice forecast. 101, see, it's already starting to warm up. That trough is really starting to head east, and we're starting to see the ridge start to build back into the west. The Pacific Northwest, well, we have a system coming through, so we're going to have some clouds here for Seattle and Portland, but not all day. Start to break up a little bit by the afternoon. Maybe a few showers around Quileute, but temperatures, look at this, very pleasant in the 80s here. 94 at Medford, 86 in Pendleton. I think I'd take that. 78 in Spokane, not bad. Yakima, 86, wow. Pretty nice. Well, coming up on TravelWise, we will talk about maybe some of the severe weather that's been happening. Stay with us.
This commercial is rated H.
Well, I hope the folks in the Northeast got to enjoy a pleasant Father's Day, and hopefully you'll get to be able to go out and enjoy Monday and maybe even Tuesday, because after that, we're going to have the pattern change a little bit. The folks in the West are going to get a chance to dry out and have some nice weather, but it looks like not so good weather heading for the folks on the East Coast. It's mainly because the jet stream is starting to change. The pattern's changing. We're going to see a ridge start to build into the west on Tuesday. This trough here, what was over here, it's now coming this way, and by Friday it's to the East Coast, so you know what that means. Cool weather and probably thunderstorms with this. But until then, you could deal with the 70s in New York and Boston, right? You could deal with the 80s in Atlanta, Indianapolis, Cleveland, I think so. But you may have to deal with some showers and thunderstorms as Wednesday rolls around. We're not going to see too much change here in the temperatures except another front coming in. You could see the cool down already across the northern plains by Friday. Tuesday's weather, we could see some strong storms from St. Louis to Dallas, and then to getting close to the East Coast by Wednesday, probably PM time frame here, but all the way into New Orleans, maybe a few scattered thunderstorms. And Thursday, much of the East Coast will have rainfall and thunderstorms even on Friday, and another system coming in the northwest. We'll have your complete 5-day planner next.
Weather. At the Weather Channel, we use the latest computer technology to help us know what's happening with the weather. Now you can too. Just go to weather.com.
When you open a can, you get razor sharp.
This is your local forecast, weather information you can plan on, because we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel. No place on earth has better weather.
Well, good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm glad you're here with us at the Weather Channel, and because we're going to let you know what kind of weather you're going to have in the next 5 days so you can start making your plans. You might have to make sure you have an umbrella if you live in the east. In the west, you might need to make sure you have the sunglasses ready because we're going to have a change in the pattern here shaping up. And with it, we're going to have to experience some severe weather as it happens, unfortunately. Monday morning, probably some leftover thunderstorms from Sunday night here in Oklahoma and in Texas and along this front. Chicago to St. Louis, Little Rock. Make sure you pack that umbrella with you. High pressure off the East Coast, well, it's going to be nice. New York and Boston to Hartford, not bad at all. Oh, you might see a stray shower or two around Lake Okeechobee or so in Florida. Meanwhile, the west quieting down somewhat as the upper level trough that has been sitting in that area is now forecast, and actually it's already starting to move this way. But what that means for the folks in Texas, Oklahoma, it means severe weather, probably more of a threat on Monday than you had on Sunday, that's for sure. We're really expecting the thunderstorms to fire up along the dry line and along the stationary boundary here. So you folks in Oklahoma City, you know, definitely be on the lookout tomorrow in Dallas to Midland to Abilene. Make sure you tune in with us. Just keep an eye to the sky. You know the drill. You know what to do if there's a tornado warning in your area. You could even have some very strong winds and some large hail with these storms. So we'll let you know if any watches are issued. You know we will. You can count on us. High pressure, though, coming in behind the front. It'll clear it out in the northern plains and the Great Lakes. Might have not a bad day at all. But Detroit to Cleveland, again, it looks like it's going to be a wet commute for you in the afternoon. Maybe even that chance of some severe weather into the Ohio Valley and also into the Missouri Valley. But the biggest threat, we think, will be in Texas and Oklahoma tomorrow. But that doesn't rule out the severe threat here along the front. And as tonight rolls on, we could see amounts over an inch or so in some of the areas because it's like a training effect. These thunderstorms are moving over the same areas over and over again. So amounts could be heavy, locally heavy. And there was a flash flood watch for Texas. I think it has been discontinued here. But flash flood watch is for a small area of eastern Kansas tonight. So, and look how warm it's going to be. 60s and 70s. Wow. It's going to cool down a little bit here in the northeast. Probably Boston in the 40s tonight, while Phoenix, it's going to be in the 60s. And wait till you see what I have for you. 90s, triple digits here in the deserts. It's going to start to warm up. Finally, the folks in Vegas, you're probably thinking, what happened to summer? What happened to spring? It was cooler. It's been cooler in Vegas than it has probably all winter in that area. So, and with that upper low, it's just been terrible. But we really start to see it warm up as a ridge kind of builds into this area. But as that ridge builds in, it means the trough is starting to dig into the east. And we may not see temperatures cool down a lot, but with the rain around, we won't see as many 80s, probably more 70s for the northeast, and the 90s kind of get pushed down a little bit with the rain there. We also have another front coming down from Canada. As you can see, it cools down in Minneapolis in the 70s, while Cleveland in the 80s, and keeping it very status quo here for the rest of the week into the northeast. Look at the mess. It's going to be a messy day on Tuesday for much of the central and eastern U.S. A few strong storms possible here from St. Louis to Oklahoma City to Dallas. We'll let you know again what the status on that is. Meanwhile, it takes its dear old time coming into the east. Mid-Atlantic states, you could probably squeak out another good day on Wednesday. And do note that the west is really starting to dry out here. Just the highest elevations getting the thunderstorms. Chicago looking good on Thursday. Meanwhile, the East Coast all the way into Friday, you have that chance of showers and thunderstorms. So it looks like an all-weeker, meaning taking your umbrella with you all week long. But you know what that means? Maybe by Saturday, you'll have some nice weather around. We'll let you know on that, too. Well, coming up, what's happening on the western side of the country? We'll let you know on the Pacific Update coming up next.
Jenny, I finally